Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Crucible Theatre, and welcome back to Sheffield and the return of the Children's Media Conference. And welcome to our online delegates watching the live stream of this session all around the world. We've been through difficult and disturbing times since we were last here in 2019. And it's not over yet, as we all know. So we'd ask you, please, to be respectful of others' needs while you're here. And please, don't come to the venue if you're feeling at all unwell or have any symptoms, please. The live stream is there for all to watch if needed. And of course, all the sessions, like this one, will be uploaded to our website as recorded videos, along with the 55 other videos already online. They'll be available to all delegates right through the summer months. So that we can involve everyone in these live sessions, we're taking questions this year using the Slido app. You need to download it to your phone and send your questions through the app. It means that everyone online can ask questions too. But we're not going to be restrictive, so if you're here in the theatre and you want to put your hand up and ask questions in the traditional manner, we have roving microphones as usual, so please do feel free. All the content for CMC is produced by a huge range of volunteers from the industry. That goes for the sessions here in Sheffield and the pre-recorded videos. The volunteer producers are supported by members of the CMC Advisory Committee, again, all industry figures, so we can truly claim that CMC really is made by the industry for the industry. And I want to send a special thank you to the Advisory Committee, who have worked hard all year round to bring us what we believe will be an amazing event. And of course, thanks as well, as always, to the CMC team, who have been working tirelessly to make this all happen. We'd also like to thank all the sponsors who make CMC possible. Our patron sponsors, you can see on the screen now. And we also have our badge, bag, lanyard, and bottle sponsor. And the sponsor for this session. A big thank you to Jellyfish Pictures. The CMC depends upon the support of numerous sponsors to help create such a lively and varied conference, and we're particularly grateful to Jellyfish Pictures for their support. We should also thank BAFTA, who are the sponsors for the Changemakers at CMC this year, both the group who have recorded videos for us and those who will be turning up here at the Crucible. Which brings us to this evening's agenda. And to talk about that, I'd like to welcome to the stage a member of the Advisory Committee who is this year acting as overall conference producer. Please welcome Tim Patterson. So, Tim, conference producer.
Well, thanks, Sue, and I'd like to say a big welcome and a big hello to all of you here. It's lovely to be here face to face, and so big welcome to the Crucible. So, yeah, this year I'm standing in for Greg Childs, who normally runs the conference, but unfortunately he can't be here this week. He is, however, overseeing the online conference and is very much with us in spirit. As to what I do, Greg says that the team is so fantastic that there never is anything to do anyway. So I'm hoping that's the way that things stay for me over the next few days. That said, if anyone does have any comments or observations, please find me. I'm here to listen.
And because Greg will no doubt be shouting at the screen right now, we'd better get on with introducing this evening's keynote and changemaker.
No, absolutely, Sue. So, our keynote speaker tonight is addressing the conference theme, What Next? And that's particularly appropriate because he works for an organization at the forefront of the seismic changes that have rocked the media industry over the last 15 years. If anyone is in the position to consider what next for the young audience, what next for our industry, and what next for creatives, it's the Managing Director of UK and Regional Director EMEA for YouTube. Ben McOwen-Wilson has held senior roles in broadcasters, in the broadcast, and notably ITV, and launched FreeSat. Ironically, he was also the chairman of Project Kangaroo, the joint VOD venture between BBC, ITV, and Channel 4, which was stifled by the Competition Commission about 13 years ago. So fast forward to 2022, and Ben is in the top team at the world's most successful on-demand service, which millions of kids use every day. Sue.
But before we hear what next from Ben, we're going to welcome one of our CMC changemakers. Anishwa Kunchala is a conservation and wildlife campaigning phenomenon. At only 7 years old, he's already won multiple awards for his work building awareness and inspiring young and old on his YouTube channel and in mainstream media to protect the planet and its living things. He's a Blue Peter Gold Badge recipient, and you may know him best from his latest adventure, making it all the way to the final of Britain's Got Talent. Anishwa has some things he wants to say to all of us. But first, let's remind ourselves how he made it into the hearts and minds of huge numbers of the British public.
Welcome back to Britain's Got Talent, the big final. Next up tonight is the 7-year-old conservationist who stole everyone's heart in Friday's semi-final. His words came straight from the heart.
And his jacket came straight from Deck's wardrobe.
Happy to help. It's Anishwa Kunchala.
I made it to the final. Woo! My name is Anishwa and I'm 7 years old. My talent is writing poems about the animals and saving the planet.
It's me! Williams!
When David surprised me at school, it felt amazing, like, whoa! I never thought I'll be performing on BGT. My first audition was nerve-wracking, but there's no other planet like Earth.
You are a remarkable young man.
This is the moment when the world met Anishwa.
I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm in the semi-finals and it's our job to do something.
It was pure, utter magic.
I do think we need to help Anishwa with his crusade.
Britain's Got Talent has been the best of the best experiences. Tonight, I get to do another poem. Woohoo! If I win, I'll be the youngest person to ever win BGT. And Dad and Mum would be super proud. Wish me luck.
I'm sure Mum and Dad are super proud. Children's Media Conference, will you please welcome the David Attenborough for the next generation, Anishwa Kunchala.
Everyone, I'm going to be talking to you today about inspiration. My inspiration is the natural world and all that lives on it. Every animal has its own superpower. Ants are a symbol of perseverance. Wolves show how we can connect by working as a team. And the lion is a symbol of courage and strength. And these animals really inspire me. Humans have superpowers too. We can be kind and caring and find amazing, clever ways of tackling bad problems like climate change. But we can also be mean and selfish too. We need to protect our Mother Earth. She needs our help. The polar bears are disappearing because the ice is melting. Fishes, corals, and marine world cannot breathe due to oil spills. Puffins, gannets, and guillemots can't flap their wings covered in the slimy coats. The toxic gases all around us, overpowering the fresh smells of the lavender. The trees are working hard, sucking up all the bad air and giving us healthy air. But it's sad to see loggers cutting down the trees, which is just not fair. Are we not destroying ourselves? There's only one thing that can save the natural world: conservation. Yes, you heard me right, conservation. This is how I would like to see the world. Lots of willow trees, magnificent big ponds, and don't forget majestic dragonflies with wonderful little dippers darting around the riverbed. Egrets gliding, herons waiting for yummy little fishes for dinner, and the wonderful golden eagle swooping in to take a bath, and waterfalls scuttling around the area. Isn't this a beautiful creation? I got interested in the natural world by watching my heroes, Steve Paxshall and David Attenborough, on BBC, YouTube, and other social media, and also by reading lots and lots of books. It helped me because they showed the beauty of many animals, like monarch butterflies, which have an array of colours to warn predators that they are poisonous. Not just for learning, social media is also helping me because if there was no YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, I wouldn't be able to spread my message to the world. Considering the severity and urgency, this is not enough. We need more from you all. I wish there were more documentaries about the environment, climate change, featuring kids like me, so our generation would be able to make a huge difference. I'm doing this using social media, but need your support to take this over to major TV channels, games, and theatres. What I dream is children leading the wildlife documentaries. Can you make this happen? Because we children are more connected into the natural world, and we can show you the world through our eyes. Please help to inspire the kids who are watching, listening, and reading to all be conservationists too. Oh, and one more tip, guys. When you're making these amazing shows, please be eco-friendly. Recycle, reuse, plant trees, and conserve energy, because there's not much point of making shows about saving the planet if the shows are damaging the planet, right? Please help kids like me to inspire future generations and show them how they can save the animals and make sure the Earth looks beautiful, because there's no other planet like Earth. I'm Anishwa, and with your support, we can all hope for a better planet. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. As if it's not unkind enough to get somebody as their first event after the pandemic to come out in front of 800 people, they get me to do it after the most brilliant 7-year-old on the planet. Thanks. My PR team will be looking for new jobs tomorrow. Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Anishwa. Thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for sharing your ideas, your dreams, and for reminding us all of the power of children's media to inspire. What an absolutely fantastic start to a conference such as this. Now, like many of you in the room, I'm sure, I love your observations on the natural world. But your words also remind me and force me to reflect on what creativity looked like when I was 7. Now, Anishwa can produce professional level content about birds and bugs and bees and share it instantly with his audience and his peers all around the world. It wasn't always thus. Growing up in a small village in Northamptonshire, my friends and I, if we were lucky, could borrow a Video 8 camera, make a few minutes of film, and share it with anyone who was sitting with us in the living room. That was it. In the analog world, young people's ideas and inspirations moved at the speed of a school photocopier or playground jokes. Now we live in a connected world, and no matter where on earth young people are growing up, part of their childhood is very likely being spent in Great Britain. The Shire, Hogwarts, Dougie's Clubhouse. The UK is home to or inspiration for some of the best-loved children's media brands all around the world. Now, with Peppa Pig inspiring a love of the English accent, and Little Baby Bum teaching the world nursery rhymes, and a new and diverse generation of talented young creators coming up, you should all congratulate yourselves on being representatives of a genuine British success story, a genuine British export powerhouse. Now, the theme for this year's conference is What Next? And it's striking that although it's only 4 years since this conference asked the same question, that it urgently needs to be posed again. The last 2 years have caused disruption on an unprecedented scale for all of us, but particularly for young people. For teenagers who didn't get to take their exams, for children who were homeschooled by Zoom, and toddlers who met their grandparents for the first time through a screen. We are all still adjusting to a new normal, and this is the first in-person children's media conference since 2019, and I am thrilled, a little intimidated, but thrilled to see so many of you here in person, as well as to those of you joining from home and seeing us online. And the role that virtual events can play in terms of accessibility and inclusivity, I hope this aspect is here to stay. I'm deeply honoured to have been invited here to speak to you all this evening. I hope I can offer a perspective, or at least some thoughts, which might encourage discussion over the days ahead. So for this speech, I'd like to turn what next into 3 nexts. First, the next generation and their expectations, their habits and choices. The next level of responsibility that goes with that, to our users, to our creators, and to regulators. And then the next model for our industry, at a time when traditional funding systems are once again under pressure, and that the division between public service broadcasters and private companies and platforms has been blurred once again. I'll be delighted to stay behind afterwards and take questions, and hopefully we can use this convention to start conversations that will lead to a more creative, more dynamic, but more robust children's media landscape than ever before. Now, these conversations need to start with the young people, because they're at the heart of everything that we do. Creators, commissioners, educators, program makers, everyone in this room has made the decision to work in children's media, with all the special joys and challenges which that entails. We owe it to the next generation to make innovative, informative content that prepares them for a world that is constantly changing and changing at pace. This generation, which has become known as Generation Alpha, or Gen A, because it follows Gen Z, is the first to be born entirely in the 21st century. Born in the 2010s, the children of Gen A are now media consumers in their own right, and they have grown up in a world of ubiquitous screens and on-demand programming. Now, YouTube is absolutely a part of that story. It's engaged young people from the start, and, prepare to feel very old, YouTube Kids has already been around for 8 years, and the main site has now been around for over 17 years. Now, YouTube has been a popular platform for voices that we didn't always hear enough from in traditional media. As an open platform, it's shown us that when audiences alone choose, the range of talent that is reflected looks much more like the world around us. Talent from minority and overlooked backgrounds has found its voice and found its audience, and that's true for young people in particular. And I'm enormously proud of all of the children and teenagers from around the world who are trying to change the world and to tell their stories on our platform. And I'm humbled every day by their creativity. And it was great to hear from Anishwa just now, and you'll be hearing from many more creators, as well as established and up-and-coming media companies throughout the CMC. But young people are a receptive audience also. And Beano Studios, home of the iconic comic, started the consultancy Beano Brain to offer consumer insights from children and their parents. For a recent report into the kids' 50 coolest brands, Beano Brain spent a year researching the tastes of tens of thousands of young people aged 7 to 14. Through face-to-face interviews and observing the brands the kids were wearing, were discussing, and liking online and offline, they learn what makes young people tick. It will come as no surprise to the parents in the room that Gen Alpha's 2 favorite brands are both video platforms. Now, humans have been telling stories for as long as we've been around, and telling them through the medium of video helped us all, big and little, to get through the challenges of the last 2 years. Why is YouTube the favored platform for this group? Well, there are several factors. First, Generation Alpha has always lived in an always-on lifestyle from the start. For this cohort, we've been there throughout their lives, first as YouTube Kids, and now very often on the main site. We are in a space where they can fit in, but also where they can express their own individuality. Next, in the words of Beano Brain Director of Insight, Helena Gilmore, we forget that increasingly kids and young people are navigating their way through a world designed by and around adults. For Gen Alpha, brands that make them feel safe and welcomed and valued stand out. And YouTube earns both child and parental approval. Both groups see it friendlier, safer than other media sites. Now, we've worked hard to create that environment across our products, but we also work to help children become safe, confident explorers of the online world more broadly, through programs such as Be Internet Legends, Be Internet Citizens, and Reframe, which brings together big names such as George the Poet, Ollie and Jacob, who will be actually on stage here tomorrow night, and Amelia de Moldenberg, discussing everything from how to deal with online abuse and tackling misinformation. And finally, Beano's research showed that young people respect brands that present a sense of guardianship of the planet. YouTube has given voice to many of this generation's biggest names on climate change. And we're also taking action ourselves. Google, our parent company, is decarbonizing our energy consumption so that by 2030, we'll actually operate on a carbon-free energy everywhere, 24/7. All these elements enabled YouTube to claim the #1 spot in Beano Brain's rankings. Now, of course, it's impossible, though, to discuss young people and screens in 2022 without mentioning the elephant in the room, the pandemic. With schools closed, parents and carers at home, but working, and the whole world on anxious pause, screen time went through the roof. So let's break down some of the changes. For a start, viewership went up rapidly. While audience habits and choices abruptly changed, that rusty bicycle with a broken chain in the shed suddenly transformed into vital transport to work, or better still, health. The best-tended sourdough starter still needs a recipe to be turned into bread. And at-home hairstyling looked 1,000 times better with a bit of professional input. Now, ComScore data showed us that lockdown intensified the shifts in media consumption that were happening long before that period. With 96% of online adults in the UK tuning in every month and watching on average 46 minutes each per day. That change in habits has persisted. We're now at a point where over 35 million users use YouTube Kids every week, and 25 million households in the UK are tuning in to YouTube via their television sets every month. Let's take a moment to look into the future, to 2030 to be precise, when Gen A are starting university. During Freshers Week, I wonder if we'll hear reminiscences of how Joe Wicks never let them skip leg day, or how Cosmic Kids Yoga helped them grow into beautiful butterflies, or how Maddie Moat taught them the basics of astronomy that went on to become straight A's at A-levels. Bringing it back to concrete reality, lockdown also prompted a spike in demand for educational content. With 90% of the world's enrolled students, that's 1.5 billion people out of education at the virus's peak in April 2020, people were increasingly turning to YouTube to get help with homeschooling. Videos with the word beginner were viewed 3 billion times in the year. Having safe, fun, relevant content available helped a whole generation of parents work from home in exceptionally challenging circumstances. And the pandemic story isn't just about YouTube, of course. Traditional media adapted quickly to help people not just survive, but to thrive during lockdown. Number one is 2, multiplied by 1 million is the number of subscribers that Numberblocks had in May 2020. And teaching numeracy across the globe, those charming countable cubes now have just under 5 million subscribers worldwide. It was that spirit of collaboration that got us all through. We worked with the BBC and Netflix to distribute their educational content to audiences all around the world. In fact, now YouTube is a distribution channel for every leading media company, including Disney and Netflix, and beyond the kids space with Channel 4 or Sky or FIFA, The Guardian, The Telegraph, and many, many, many more. And I'll speak more about the power of working together when I talk about the next model for our industry. But for the moment, let me stress that we want to do more together and to continue to build deeper relationships between our platforms and others in the kids and television media space. Now, our relationship with the next generation relies on one thing: trust. The findings from the Beano Brain Study, I believe, reflect the work that we've done on this already. Creators became pandemic heroes because viewers trusted them to keep us sane and healthy during the darkest days of lockdown. Viewers, parents, and creators trusted us. That trust means that we must hold ourselves to a higher level of responsibility. And I'd like to tell you some more about what we're going to be doing to uphold the values that have got us this far. Now, to quote the uncle of comic book legend Uncle Ben for Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And I'm sure everyone in this room feels that sense of duty about their work. Children's media is much more than entertainment. We have a very real duty of care to the young people. Done right, children's media can pose questions, inspire growth, and bring joy. Conversely, if children see something that upsets them or confuses them, it can go deep. Keeping children safe online is a job for all of us, for platforms, for parents, for teachers, and for content creators, like those of you in the room. Now let's start with the kids. Across Google and YouTube, we've continued to invest in innovative safety technology to remove and identify and report sexual abuse material online. Sharing this technology now across the industry. These were foundational investments that we made many, many years ago because we want everybody to have the best tools to be able to combat this problem. Over time, we've also iterated and improved our policy coverage and enforcement, taking down millions of videos worldwide for violations of our child safety community guidelines, which are designed to keep kids safe online. To give you an idea of scale, in the first quarter of this year, 2022, here in the UK, we took down 49,000 videos overall. Now, 10,000 of those were for child safety violations. And those were just a small amount of the more than 900,000 videos that were removed in that quarter globally for breaching of various community guidelines. And we are transparent about what we take down and why we take it down. Anyone can see how many videos we're removing and why every quarter. We update which policies are breached, where they were uploaded, and why we're removing them. But detecting this material is just the start of what we do. We discover and terminate thousands of accounts every week that belong to people who are actually under 13. We develop tools for parents to monitor the platforms, such as Family Link, which gives families more control and choices to suit them. Since 2019, we've stopped serving personal ads on children's content, and we treat data from anybody who's watching children's content on YouTube as if it's coming from a child, regardless of the age of the user who's actually logged in. And then there are a range of nudge behaviors which help people use the platform in a healthier way. For users under 18, we've turned off autoplay and changed the default upload mode to private. We now use published quality principles to elevate high-quality content in our recommendations. Lower quality content is pushed down the recommendations, and anything featuring minors in risky situations is removed altogether. But our parallel responsibility is to creators, to protect young YouTubers. We've disabled comments on tens of millions of videos and channels featuring minors across the platform to limit the risk of exploitation. And we disallow younger minors from live streaming unless they're clearly accompanied by an adult. And channels that breach this policy lose their ability to live stream and ultimately will be removed from the platform. Next, we protect content creation. When we detect content that has been copied, our tools notify the owner and see what they want to do. Pirated versions are either quickly removed or, if they prefer, are monetized with that revenue going to the producer themselves. And all of this is enabled by our globally leading copyright protection tools, including Content ID. And finally, we distribute advertising revenue fairly to our partners and creators. We pay out the lion's share of every pound, dollar, yen, or euro that's being made from viewing on our platforms to the creators and IP owners behind every video. And I find it hard to believe, but in 2022, 15 years after we launched that YouTube partner program, we are the only open platform who does that. And we're not talking small amounts either. Across the 3 years to 2021, YouTube paid out $30 billion to more than 2 million partners around the world. As I mentioned earlier, in 2019, we stopped putting personalized ads on children's content, in part to comply with the age-appropriate design code, which I'll come back to shortly. Now, this is a great example where doing the right thing by one group, our users, can have a negative impact on another, our partners and creators. The loss of personalized ads on kids' content, combined with the soon after it impact of COVID, led to a drop in advertising revenue for kids' content, which saw creators getting paid less throughout much of the pandemic. You were, understandably upset. However, there are promising signs of the recovery, with, I know, many of you reporting revenues now back beyond and above 2019 levels. And we're not talking about a cottage industry here. In the last month alone, CoComelon, Little Baby Bum, and Blippi have been viewed 2.4 billion times. Those 3 YouTube channels are all owned by one company, Moonbug Entertainment, which was actually bought by Candle Media last year for a reported $3 billion. At the same time, CoComelon is a great example of children's media that started on YouTube, but has been progressively going more and more mainstream. First available on Netflix, and now on the BBC and iPlayer. And still up on YouTube. But this is all down to the creators. And I know that YouTube wouldn't exist without them or you. Now, finally, we have a responsibility to comply with the rules and regulations wherever our services are available. But also much more than that, because of who we are, because of how big we are, We have a responsibility to lead the way on safety. The products we build, especially those for kids, and the way in which we police and protect them should be setting the standard for what safe can and must look like. We haven't waited for regulation to drive this. We've done it because it was the right thing to do. And now our sector is facing a step change in the way that we are regulated. And we will all face new challenges that come with that. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with elements of the Age-Appropriate Design Code, or AVMS, the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, as well as being acutely aware of a wave of further regulation that is coming. In fact, DCMS have never had so many bills making their way into law in one parliamentary session. And this isn't the forum. I'll take questions if you want. This isn't the forum for us to take a deep dive into the details of individuals' policy changes. We can save that for questions or for question time tomorrow. But I'd like to raise one central issue now. Everyone in this room needs the government and Ofcom to get this right. As I've mentioned, the UK is punching well above its weight in terms of global reach for children's media. And the programs and characters that you create are known, viewed, and loved worldwide. Let me outline the bills that may affect our sector most directly. Platforms like ours will be regulated by the Online Safety Bill, the most complex piece of content moderation that we're seeing anywhere in the world. Ofcom is driving up standards to include a duty to protect young people using online services, and quite rightly setting a higher bar on illegal content and content that is legal but harmful for children. This legislation is long overdue, and I'm sure we all welcome it, but it will have an impact on platforms and on creators. The Media Bill, which is expected to be published in draft any time now, has the mission to update the broadcasting law for the digital age. It's not my place, at least when I'm being filmed, to place a comment on the plan to sell Channel 4, but other parts of the bill could have a seismic impact on the independent sector and the independent production companies, which have been absolutely central to the UK's global success story when it comes to children's programming. It's impossible to yet know what that impact will be, and I recognize that many of you in the room will be very concerned. But I urge you all to think back almost 20 years to the last time we saw major media legislation pass through Parliament. It's incumbent on all of us to make this a moment like the 2003 Communications Act, which released a new wave of creative entrepreneurship, an opportunity that I will return to later. Alongside all this, there are major proposed changes coming in the online advertising programme. This will put in new expectations on creators of children's programming, on platforms, on advertisers. We must all be in listening mode right now, addressing the legitimate concerns that have been raised and ready to make changes that we need to comply with legislation once we know its form. Wherever it all ends up, this sector will endure. Children's media has adapted more times than Mr. Ben changed his outfit. And that's thanks to you. That's thanks to you and your relentless focus on what audiences want and what they love. To use one of the most popular tropes in children's media, our industry will emerge from the cocoon of this legislative period as a beautiful butterfly, not just surviving, but thriving. And I'm confident of that. And that brings me on to the final next for today. What is the next model for our industry? Do we go forward alone or together? And how do we deal with the changing landscape for funding and for revenues? Just plugging the merch there. I've talked a lot about the UK's incredible reputation for children's content. However, we're living in interesting times. And the funding models which has got us here now face incredible upheaval. In fact, let me take a moment to broaden this out. We face uncertainty on multiple and unprecedented fronts. The pandemic is far from over, as anyone with children of school age will know. Brexit is anything but a done deal, and the full impact of Brexit on the UK's culture and media sector remains unclear. The cost of living crisis is affecting everyone. At the starkest end, families with young children are resorting to food banks or skipping meals altogether. This is not conducive to happy, creative children. And we should also consider the impact on our industry when better-off families look at their outgoings. Streaming services are often one of the first luxuries to go. And as demographic figures show, sky-high house prices and astronomical costs of childcare in the UK make even having children a difficult choice for many millennials. The bigger picture for society as a whole is far from rosy, and we must expect that our industry will be impacted by this and called on to respond to this. To get back to the detail, we've seen something of a retrenchment from children's content by the traditional broadcasters, with the latest development the announcement that CBBC is due to come off air as a linear channel by 2025. Now, of course, it's a chicken and egg situation. Yes, viewers are moving away from linear, but at the same time, linear has consistently reduced investment. The best indicator of this, which predates the pandemic, is from the Children's Content Review. And I appreciate that for many of you in the room, this may be ancient history. But it's good, of course, to remember how we got here. Ofcom looked at the 10 years from 2006 to 2017 and found that the amount that public broadcasters were spending on children's programming had fallen by 44%, from 140 million to 80 million. And that children's original programming hours, not repeats, on PSBs had dropped by 64%, from 1,586 hours to 575. Now, the Young Audience Content Fund was created in part as a response to this finding. It went on to support 144 development projects, including the Sustainable Craft Show, Makeaway Takeaway, and The World According to the Grandpa. And now, after 3 years, it too is closing. And that might feel faster paced than an episode of Sunny Bunnies, and I know that will be tough for many of you in this audience. But British creative ingenuity has shown before that we can find a way through. And I would like us to find the positive even in this situation. This time, it is different. And maybe what we're actually looking at is an opportunity for creative entrepreneurship. Maybe this will be another 2003. What was then a monolith, the world of linear broadcasting, is now a multiverse. Things are different, and they're different for several reasons. First, a big shift has already occurred. Compared to 2006, when children's TV funding began that descent you see, kids and kids' content creators have turned to YouTube and Netflix and other outlets as a place to make and find content. Now, these alternatives are well established, meaning there's a more stable ecosystem to build audiences, to build brands, and ultimately to build revenues. Yet think about the comparison with just a few years ago when the YAC Fund was launched. How much has online grown, both as a source of viewing and as a source of revenue? And finally, the next wave of content developers. They will have more entrepreneurial spirit, having grown up entirely digital. Like Anishwa, whose inspiration launched this session, they don't have to make a huge upfront investment in the equipment to get seen. The barriers to entry for standing in front of a camera, making simple animations, or writing simple short-form scripts are virtually non-existent. This next generation of creators are empowered by open distribution channels that are more democratic, more inclusive, and more egalitarian than a model based on commissioners and channel controllers. The content they make is remunerated. We know that YouTube and our sector as a whole would be nothing without creators. We all need to ask, what is needed to enable the UK's content creators to excel? And to do that, we need to let go of the us and them mentality. Entrepreneurial creators who are simultaneously discerning viewers inspired by the content that they have seen around them can make high-quality content and thrive on every platform. Let's look at Adam Beals, who went from having 300 million views on YouTube to becoming the 40th Blue Peter presenter. Or the Grimwade family, whose transition from vloggers to having their own program on Milkshake came as a result of a meeting here at CMC. And when it comes to education, The best creators are teaching children things in a way that's accessible to them. Look at Maddie Moat and the way she explains everything from yogurt to outer space on both YouTube and CBeebies. And as Big Chef and Little Chef have repeatedly shown us, a big pie means there's more to share for everybody. Linear versus streaming has never been an issue for children. A 3-year-old cares about whether they're going to watch Bluey or Blippi or Mighty Mike or the Moomins, not which platform or channel they're watching it on. The linear versus streaming debate shouldn't be an issue for us grown-ups either. Now, as ever, content is king. And content can do incredible good. Since the start of this year, the world has been focused on the terrible situation unfolding in Ukraine. And I'm proud that YouTube Kids, in partnership with PACT and its members, is supporting Sunflower TV. This new channel will provide hundreds of hours of Ukrainian language children's programming to young people across Europe. Mattel, Nickelodeon, Sky, and the BBC will introduce them to Peppa Pig, Thomas and Friends, Mr. Bean, the animated series Jojo and Gran Gran, Go Jetters, along with Ukrainian productions, such as Brave Bunnies and Eskimo Girl. It launched last week, and it's featured on YouTube Kids all across Europe, starting from this Thursday. Now, this just shows, in a world where almost 70% of Ukrainian children are displaced, the power of what we can do when we all work together. And it's the power of what we can achieve when we work innovatively and creatively together that I want us all to focus on for the next few days. I've set out the landscape for our industry, the transition we find ourselves in the middle of, and the power, when we've pulled it off, of working together. But now it's up to all of us to take the conversation forward. It's the first time we've seen each other face to face since the pandemic struck, and it's time to talk. The funding question will be covered in more depth in Thursday's debate, the Yak Fund, what next? But a version of this question surely should be posed in every session. It should run right through everything we do. We must be ready to listen to new ideas, and we must keep innovating to support the creators of today and inspire the creators of tomorrow. We owe it to our industry and to our audiences to get it right. The British children's media industry has literally put our country on the map. Children worldwide can now name 2, not 1, London railway stations from the power of children's film and television. One for the mythical platform 9 3/4, and the other due to a little bear who likes to share his marmalade sandwiches with the Queen. Children's media was the launchpad for talents as diverse as Russell T Davies and Anton Deck. Viewers who grow up watching funny, smart, engaging content go on to enjoy it for the rest of their lives, and even sometimes to make it or to control where it gets made. I know that Johnny Morris's Animal Magic and Rhubarb and Custard were my inspiration. And I'm sure there's a program or a person that has inspired every single one of you to get into this industry too. You are the ones who make this powerhouse work. We all need to ensure that there is a funding model that is fit for purpose going forward. This forum and this conference is the perfect place to discuss it, and I feel confident that I'm going to leave Sheffield charged with energy and charged with ideas on where our industry can go next. I trust that you will too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, question time. You've all been told about Slido, so please use it. We've had a few questions coming through, but also we might do old school as well with mics. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 volunteers, all have mics. So if you would like to ask a question now to Ben, then please do raise your hand. But I'm going to kick off the questions with one on Slido. And this is from Joe Redfern. Okay, so we know that Gen Alpha's favorite search engine is YouTube for information ranging from what is a mortgage to how to cook lasagna. And how do I make money? How does YouTube mitigate against incorrect, unbalanced, and downright misleading information that young people might discover?
Sure. So hopefully I addressed some of that in the speech, but I'll talk a little bit more about how we take very seriously our responsibilities around the content that we put up, in particular around where it's news content, and I think I'll distinguish between news content and non-news content. But overall, our approach is very much around a structure that we call the 4 R's of responsibility. So the first is about removing content. Those 950,000 videos that were removed in Q1 of this year are all videos that breach any one of our policies. And we've got 16 different policy areas, one of which is child safety, as you heard, some of which could be very bad stuff, as you saw with the CSAM slide, some of which is just pranks and other things. So it's a broad range. But 16 content areas or policy areas where we enforce strictly and remove content. So remove is the first R. The second is reduce. And that's where there's content on there that doesn't breach our policies guidelines, but isn't, in our view, great quality content. And you heard me talking about that, and we publish them with respect to content that you find on the children's apps. We essentially downweight that. We're an open platform. We'll only remove content that's in breach of our policies, but the view is that to enjoy the privileges that turning up in the algorithm deliver, your content needs to be of a particular quality, and we're quite happy to take that away. So remove, reduce. The third piece, and this is key, is about raising up. And that's where having such great content from so many of the companies and broadcasters represented in this room, where you've got something else to serve, the worst results, whether it's on YouTube or Google or anything else, is where there's nothing else to serve. So where you've got great content to serve up, that allows you to deliver that. And that's particularly true around factual content. And then the last piece, the last R, is about rewarding, which is about that fundamental of our business model, which we launched in 2007, a revenue sharing model that we hope drives the best behavior in terms of actually giving people a good reason to create higher quality content on the platform.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Now I'm going to try and take something from the floor. Anyone interested in? We have an arm up there, so please, when you get given the mic, please can you say your name if you want to? Thank you very much.
Hello, Tim. It's Brandon. Hi, Ben. So I grew up of the generation where I've basically exclusively watched YouTube. It's scary to think that YouTube has essentially been around for my entire life. But an important element, I think, of YouTube is the creators themselves and the creators that are on the platform. Linear television, has been on a decline for young audiences. But creators, I think, have an appetite to make the jump over to linear. But, there's not been very many success stories. And I know YouTube pursued a strategy of YouTube Originals itself. Do you have any thoughts or insights, I guess, for people in this room of how they can work with creators? And maybe, the creators for me are my modern day celebrity. Is there kind of a more beneficial role that they can play in the media ecosphere?
No, I think I think it's definitely true that the YouTube creators for that generation are kind of the pop stars, the football players, the musicians of their era. They're the stars of that, and we're seeing many more of them actually make that jump across. In fact, interestingly, I think we saw it first in music. So if you think Dua Lipa was an unsigned artist on YouTube, only on YouTube for 6 years. Stormzy was unsigned for 8 years. Dave is still actually unsigned. He literally hasn't got a record label. These are people who've now made it across, obviously, into the mainstream of music. We're seeing it again in television with talent moving across to do that. What you find is that for most YouTubers, they still want to carry on doing their YouTube. I think that's one of the things that is very different about the YouTube environment versus working in a produced environment is that you get to drive the creativity yourself. That the idea is it's unencumbered. If you've ever heard actually somebody going the other way, like a Jamie Oliver, speak about what he loves about YouTube versus what he feels about being produced for television. If you're able to maintain elements of that and yet bring to working with the creator some of the things that they don't have, whether that's around production values, whether that's working with other pieces of talent, whether that could be like the craft of editing or sound, or it can be with writers. And we've done some work in the UK with BBC Talent Works, which are sort of a small part of BBC Studios, looking at how they can begin better sort of unearthing, both in front of the camera, but actually also behind the camera talent, so that they can pull it into comedy, kids, and actually scripted drama.
Thank you very much. Now, I know that we are running out of question time, but I do have... Ooh, what was that? I've got another one. Okay, so
two up there.
This gentleman at the top. Thank you very much. So what we'll do, we'll have one more from the floor from this gentleman, and then what we'll do, one more from Slido, and then we'll wrap and hand over to Sue.
Hi, Ben. My name's Samir. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and, well, this is loud. Okay. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I only allow her to watch YouTube Kids just because it feels like a much safer environment. Right. But I'm also a content creator, and while it's easy enough to get my animated content on YouTube, I can't figure out how to get it on YouTube Kids. Is that a different algorithm, or I don't know how that works?
So it is. Congratulations on your daughter. I've got 4 daughters. So I see your one daughter and trump that. I've got. And certainly for my younger ones, I've got everything going on in my house. I've got 3 to 18, so literally, we've had a nightmare lockdown. Hopefully none of them are watching on the live stream. So absolutely, YouTube Kids, it is specifically a constrained corpus, right? I mean, it's not only a pretty interface that a small child can use, it's absolutely about providing an environment where we can offer parents confidence and comfort that the content that their children are going to be exposed to there is safe. And even within the YouTube Kids app, you can start at one end where you are practically, as the parent, controlling which channels populate, literally kind of either from individual channels or from kind of pre-selected groups that will allow you to build the content that's available, all the way through to kind of the fullest range of content for that we would deem to be safe for children who are likely to be using the Kids app. And then we've replicated that on the main app, which again is a less well-known piece, which is around, because initially YouTube Kids was designed for everyone under 13. The reality is we see you logging on and we think, he's probably not into kind of ballet or drawing these cartoon characters. So what we try and do now is use those cues that we get from the way an individual user is using your account to put you into what we would call the supervised experiences level. And again, for those of you who are parents, do use those tools. Do tell us whether they don't work. Do tell us, if you've got small kids. I'm sort of a real bore on Sundays if we go out for brunch, or Saturdays if we go out for brunch. I'm like walking over to the parents on the table next to us and saying, actually, can I download YouTube Kids on your phone for you now? And then you can leave your child sat at the end of the table watching it while you enjoy Bellinis or whatever else they're enjoying. Because we build these things to create a safe environment for children. And that, as I described, that if kids are exposed to content that is unhealthy for them, that can have really, really profound effects. And we take our responsibility super, super seriously in terms of trying to use the technology to block it. And I'm not saying your content isn't appropriate, but it will need to go through other checks before we would include it in that. And that would be true for everybody.
Perfect, thank you. Now, as if by magic, a little bird called Greg Charles said, I've got another 5 minutes. So I've got one more question to ask, and then I'll hand over to Sue. This is from Mr. Anonymous. And they ask, are there any specific content themes and topics you're looking to focus on with YouTube funding support for content creation?
Yeah. So my advice always to create, like, the stuff that we fund up front, and so we commission and behave like a broadcaster, is a minuscule portion of the payouts that we make. I told you the numbers from like a couple of years ago, so 30 billion over 3 years. You are far better, you are always far better Anishwa, creating content around a topic that you are passionate about or that you believe you can find an audience that is passionate about, and building that out, not asking us whether we want more cooking videos or education videos or workout videos or other things. Because actually, what you'll find on open platforms like ours is that an audience who also loves that content will find that content. And that is as true in kids as it is in adult themes like kind of cycling or cooking or workouts or yoga or whatever else you kind of think of for adults and parents. So that's a really long-winded way of me saying I would always much rather have a conversation with you which is around what's the stuff that you really want to make? What's the stuff that you really want to make? Let's talk about how we can, if you like, lower the risk of trying to build that, of build the interest for that on our platform, rather than try and sit down and have a conversation that's just around funding. We are doing content funding, but it's just not a huge amount. I mean, we're just not big spenders in that marketplace. I'll say that unashamedly, right? We're not big spenders, but we're far bigger than Netflix is in terms of the amount that we're paying out to content creators every year. So that's actually the opportunity with a platform like ours, is to be a business that has built your audience around the shows that you know people love and has built the revenues off the back of that.
Thank you. I will have to wrap it there, but thank you again, Ben.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Ben, I've got a little something for you, so would you like to just take that? And thank you very, very, very much indeed. And Anisha, would you like to come up as well? We've got a... You're very welcome. The smallest person gets the biggest present. Sorry about that, Ben. So that's it for this evening. There are drinks waiting in the Crucible Bar just outside. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9:30 for the ever-popular CMC question time, which Ben mentioned earlier. Ben's given us some food for thought for that, and we'll be hearing your concerns and issues too. Thanks again to this evening's sponsors, Jellyfish Pictures and BAFTA. And thank you, of course, to all of you in the Crucible and those of you who are watching at home. See you tomorrow.